Abusua makwaba about the POG political media so na mehyɛ so yɛ foforɔ no about POG media so I need you know go kwan so I'm so drop subscription because POG deɛ Ghana political headlines ni bi ɛna yɛn nso yɛde ba abɛso ma Ghana ɛne POG abɛdwafoɔ na wɔn nso updated with all the political issues and also ɛkɔ so ɛwɔ ɔman Ghana highway no so na yɛbɔ ɛde ra yɛn nsɛm ha na kyerɛ sɛ yɛbɔ ɛde ɛwura K.Ofori ata ɛyɛ ne issues ɛno nso abɛtɔ dwa anaasɛ ɛno nso da abɔnten so throughout the NPP government later part na ɔno nso ɛtumi yɛwura Nana Addo Dankwa the then president nso ɛtumi yii ne firi ne position as the finance minister ɔno nso ɛtumi kɔtena fie na abatoɔ no mu a yɛto aba na kyerɛ sɛ NDC ba aban mu no na kyerɛ sɛ ɔno nso ɛtumi gye hane a na ɛka me akɔyɛ sɛ the OSP no nso ɛtumi de kwaadu bi bɔɔ no sɛ katahyehyɛ ne porɔyɛ ne ɔman Ghana properties bi nso akɔdi ne hɔ a kyerɛ sɛ na kyerɛ sɛ OSP nso ɛhwehwɛ mu na kyerɛ sɛ mmerɛ bi wɔ hɔ a na kyerɛ sɛ ɛno nso ɛne no adi na wei na Singapore nso ɛde ɔmo ho agye saa issue yi mu yi na ɛnim hard ne den a ɛde ama the OSP sɛ ɔno nso bɛtumi akɔ na ɔmo nso akɔ so K.Ofori ata deɛ afiri US akɔkyima mu Singaporefoɔ nso ɛde ɔmo ho agye mu a kyerɛ sɛ ɔmo ahyɛ sɛ ɔmo bɛboa ɔman Ghana na kyerɛ sɛ K.Ofori ata na kyerɛ sɛ Singapore koraa na nka ebɛdi n'asɛm a ɔmo nso bɛmaki sure sɛ ɔno nso bɛtumi afeesi mmara na kyerɛ sɛ biribiara so akɔ so ɛde ama the OSP office a ɛno nso ɛnyɛ asɛm ketewa mɛsɛ sɛ bɛgye brɛ na yɛabɔ ɛde awura saa issue mu da ase.
So I think compared to many of the other common law jurisdictions, Singapore courts offer certainty, offer speed, offer neutrality, which is why international businesses and foreign parties often choose Singapore for dispute resolution, even though they have no connection to it.
Yes, and we will get to that part as well because there's some very, great news as far as international arbitration, and Aloysius will coming with the mediation aspect of it as well. But there are lawyers, there are judges who are watching and listening to us this very moment. Can you help us understand which bodies are responsible for leading criminal prosecutions? And are cases heard by jury or sole judges? Why?
In Singapore, criminal prosecutions are driven or led by the Attorney General's chambers. So that is the independent body that prosecutes crime. And unlike many other common law jurisdictions, all proceedings are heard before a judge, not the jury.
So, yes, go ahead.
Sorry, as to why, I think there is a great acceptance in Singapore that legal matters need to be tried by legal experts. And that's one. And also, it needs to be tried by a person who is trusted to be fair. So that I feel is a great advantage that a judge-led system has over a jury-led trial.
On average, the turnaround time for cases, how long does it take to resolve a typical criminal case or a commercial dispute in Singapore?
Well, I'm not a criminal lawyer. I'm a commercial lawyer, but I would say that so let me talk about commercial matters first. I think for reasonably complex commercial dispute, when one presses the button and starts legal proceedings in the High Court, one would expect it to be heard and have a judgment delivered within 18 to 24 months.
Right. Now, talking earlier about, the broad acceptance of court decisions or the confidence in the judiciary, Shem, are you able to share an example of a landmark case that shaped public perception of the courts in Singapore?
Well, if I could mention a fairly recent high-profile case, I would refer to the case of Party Liani. And this was a case that involved a foreign domestic worker from Indonesia who was accused of theft by her employer. Her employer came from prominent family, shall I say, in Singapore. And obviously for the accused, she was a domestic helper. So you could say someone from who didn't have much financial means and a foreigner. So Party was convicted at the state court level, but she appealed. And the High Court overturned the conviction, finding that there were serious inconsistencies in the evidence and that she may have been wrongfully accused after expressing an intention to lodge complaints against her employer. So this was a case that drew wide public attention. And the fact that the High Court overturned the state court decision, I think it really demonstrated that Singapore courts are not influenced by status or power or citizenship of the parties to a dispute. And even a foreign domestic worker with limited means could receive a fair hearing, and ultimately justice was done.
Thank you, Shem. Let me bring in Aloysius now. And because of your area of focus and having founded Sage Mediation and reading about your background, in fact, in our interactions with you in your offices, at Sage Mediation, getting to know your role in the mediation, architecture in Singapore, you must have have had a long practice in mediation in Singapore. It's one aspect that contributes to the attraction. How long have you been doing this?
Without saying too much about my age, I would say more than 20 years, and we'll leave it there.
So, what initially drew you to mediation, and how has your practice evolved over time?
What drew me to mediation? That is a very long story, but suffice to say that I think I'm at heart a problem solver, and when I was in law school, I struggled with the adversarial nature of common law, and I think I was.
And sorry for our viewers watching. That's the Supreme Court building of Singapore. About a nice story with about 20 different courts. Very modern and has all the digital architecture right in there. They make provision for media right in each courtroom. Yes, Aloysius, please continue.
And just to add onto the building, the Chief Justice and all the top judges are all in the UFO that's right on top. We always wonder whether it can take off, but I don't think it can. But anyway, to come back, so I think I was looking for a way to use my legal training to find solutions that that would work out for the long term for everyone who is involved. I think too often disputes happen because actually everyone has contributed a little bit to it, or it's a third force outside, and I think we've seen a lot of that in the recent years. The pandemic being the most stark. There's been, I mean, in my work now, there are so many disputes from commercial to employment to family disputes whose origins are from that period from 2020 to 2022 when everyone's lives and livelihoods were thrown into great disarray. And the law is just not designed to deal with such unanticipated mass disruptions. And yeah, so I think where my work has changed a lot is that definitely when I first graduated, and I did try. I interviewed with a few law firms, but mediators were not well regarded as a profession. There weren't many of us, right? And I think mediation was not so entrenched in the Singapore legal system and the Singapore justice system. But today it's become very, very widely used.
Yes,
and my practice has evolved.
Tell us about that. How is mediation, properly entrenched and formalized and widely used as a popular form of dispute resolution, which the world knows is one of the attractions?
Well, I think today lawyers are aware that when they file a dispute on the client's behalf in court, one of the first questions that is going to be asked to them by the registry, by the judges, is, have your clients tried mediation, and are your clients going to try mediation? I think the question has changed from, is your client prepared to try, to when is your client going to try mediation? There is now a very strong assumption that they must attempt it, and this question is now floated at nearly every stage of the trial process, from the first time that you file to before hearings, and sometimes after the hearings, just before judgments are out. And I have also done quite a few cases where it's post-judgment.
Like Jumedi, yeah, say open like and I say own subscribe to a POG Political Media and the Akuffo drop subscription. Now also bet my share no for so and so at me account. Now in the match say a year Singapore for year the two come here for say a ban of international a year court issues are one of the best countries are also betting me a corner just a BBC, betting me or Beginem, not just all so etimi share number and so etimi a deal me a cry a year a bino, and I say the particular country no feel say Katashish ne proyebi and so etimi born on no measure no money nedi na wada a bra you are John Dramani Mahama call on and I just said and I'm some relationship on no money na building and no. And also a fast so met me aboa my Ghana na say emra and so etimi ne K.Ofori and so etimi adi. This is a bit was na yeti in semino edi no. But that's it.
And because one side has said we want to appeal, the registry has also said, well, if you want to appeal it, go send it for mediation again. Go try mediation again. So mediation is happening all the time, right? And for all kinds of cases. I think in the early days, we experimented, as many jurisdictions do, first with family cases and with low value civil cases. But in today's atmosphere, I think the SIMC just announced at the Singapore Convention Week that their largest dispute was $8 billion. I also just had a mediation that involved 7 different parties, 7 law firms, 3 of which were out of Singapore. So we are dealing with much more complicated matters coming for mediation today, and this is because number one, the courts are pushing for it. Number two, the lawyers have become very supportive. I maybe just want to segue here to always highlight that when many different jurisdictions come to visit Singapore and they see how much mediation is used, the temptation is to imagine that this can be transferred into their jurisdiction, and it can happen overnight. And I have to remind them that this was a journey that took us the better part of 30 years. That was very, very strategically incepted by the Chief Justices, right, and by the different ministers for law, and also by our law society. It took a while to help the judges and the lawyers change their mindset, and now collectively we are working to change society's mindset towards mediation, and our ability to work collectively. I think that is what has made Singapore's experience very, very unique.
Right. In Ghana, we have what we call the court-connected ADR. We passed a law in 2010 to support mediated resolution of cases. But in 2004, we provided, as part of our rules, for a mandatory pretrial mediation for commercial cases. How does Singapore's approach differ? I know you have scaled up to the International Mediation Center, as you just referred to, which deals with matters even beyond the jurisdiction of Singapore.
So, I must admit that my research into Ghana told me about where your mediation legislation is at right now. I'm not sure how you evolved it to this stage. I can share that for Singapore, we only started giving judges the power to order mediations, the power to mandate mediations, sometime last year. It took us a while before we moved to mandate, and we were careful about it. And I say this having been CEO of SIMC and having been a big part of the ministry's strategic thought, the government's strategic thought to how to grow mediation use. And I know when we first started, when we were trying to create the SIMC, as well as our Mediation Act, we studied many different jurisdictions, and we did consider mandating mediation. But we were also clear, having seen the experience of other jurisdictions, that if you mandate mediation, when your lawyers are not ready, when your mediators, the pool of professional, well-trained mediators are not ready, then chances are your mediations will have very, very poor experiences and outcomes. And so we started by moving first from an opt-in model, so parties can choose to mediate. We took 5 years there. Then we moved to opt-out. Parties have to give reasons not to mediate. And then it took us another 10 years before we actually moved to mandate mediation. And I think that is the secret to our Mediation Act's success, that we gave the ground sufficient time for the practice to really mature and the mindsets to change, so that today, when parties are forced to come for mediation, chances are they're quite okay with it because the lawyers know how to support them, and the mediators are also able to help them achieve good outcomes, and so that they don't resent having been ordered by the court to go for mediation. Yeah.
Right. What learning would you like a country like us to take from the Singapore International Mediation Center, or mediation generally, to engender business? You attempted to hint at that a bit, but help focus it for me. What are some of the learnings you think we can take?
I always tell my friends that when the years I spent as the SIMC CEO were difficult years, so far as, we had to really change mindsets. And what I learned was that definitely having a strong international mediation center, strong in terms of a diverse and clearly skilled panel of mediators, transparent, accessible mediation rules, professional case managers who can respond within 12 hours to any inquiry, good facilities that work. You don't have Wi-Fi that drops, you don't have toilets that are clogged, you have rooms where the air conditioning can be trusted to function 24 hours. I think those are basic. As much as we think that is already difficult, those are basic. What, in my mind, really helped SIMC succeed, and I don't take away from the government from investing in all of the above that I've listed, was really the quality of the talent that Singapore had. That, if we didn't have lawyers who were open to this and who were supportive of mediation, if we didn't have mediators who had a 20-year runway getting ready before the SIMC was launched, all that wouldn't have worked and wouldn't have helped Singapore to really position ourselves as a hub for disputes, not just from the region, but from the whole of Asia and all around the world, to come and trust us to get the job done for you.
So, as one of the foundation leaders of the Singapore International Mediation Center, the question on my mind is, how does a country, set up and dream that you will set up a mediation center looking at, transnational business, not just to take care of, mediating cases within the country?
I think Singaporeans are dreamers. To have a country the way that we are in our size, we dream. But more than dreamers, you have visited us. Our government and our people have been trained as economists. We are very, very data driven. And what really drove us to set up the SIMC back in 2014 was that the government did a very detailed international research, and we realized that Asia was going to be receiving about $1 trillion US dollars of infrastructure investment a year. This was in 2014. And 80% of that was going to come to Southeast Asia. And we also recognized then that when economic activity increases, disputes are going to come. And we need a place to resolve these disputes if we want those foreign investments to translate to real economic development and progress. So it was a very calculated, strategic move. It was not just a pipe dream, but we saw that there was going to be this need, and we saw that we were uniquely placed with our transport, our access, our connectivities, our visa-free travels, one of the best passports in the world and the most accessible airports and seaports in the world. And we said, this is the way that Singapore can value add.
Great.
So SIMC was not just a dream. It was very calculated.
Right. In addition to the SIMC, and I'm coming to Shem now, you set up the Singapore International Arbitration Center, and it's also become such a global attraction. Last year alone, over 600 cases, were handled by this center. And the majority of these cases, as I interacted, the Ghanaian lawyers who were there interacted with the officials at the at the Singapore International Arbitration Center. The majority of these cases did not involve parties who were within Singapore. Shem, as one who is involved in, maritime law and so on, what, again, will you say is the global attraction for this arbitration center in Singapore?
You know, Samson, I think to understand Singapore's rise to be a major player in the international arbitration space, one must look back at the historical role that Singapore played in the world and not just look at the legal system in
That's it. So come home. I bought Eddie Medium say POG the Ghana authentic political arbiter POG persona also sabiti me account who the echo and the eba my Ghana. I am on the same. Na me share so subscribe to your POG Media so ha na dey kwa so abajo post subscription na also wetimi a share na for so answer so etimi aka na obetimi so a share comment comment section ho na POG Media man say beba na yen so aba be ma ho e mo me that's it. So come home e wo jumadi be share